I think they're actually following me.
So I'm guessing you clicked on this video because of the title.
Shit.
You're probably wondering why I'm running through the woods, mumbling and rambling like an idiot. And it's because I was almost attacked by 3 bears. I was just barely able to get away from them. And if you want to know further details of what happened, stay tuned.
I told you guys I'd show you everything.
Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Fritz KO going home for the day. Wonder if you could buzz me.
Sign out in the lobby, you're all set.
Thanks, man. Have a nice day.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going home! Clear up path, you motherfucker!
When you grow up, you find out that life isn't the way you imagined it.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
You met me at a very strange time in my life.
With your feet on the air, your Try this trick and spin it. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Fritz KO, and welcome to my YouTube channel.
Fritz KO Vids.
Hello, my name is Fritz KO. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm currently fighting the YouTube algorithm. Basically, it's my fault for not making any YouTube videos in such a long period of time. How you can help me with this is by hitting the like button, subscribing if you're not subscribed, hitting the notification bell, sharing these videos to forums that you think are applicable, like Facebook forums, and also showing them to your friends. This could help me out a lot. And it could help me help you if you want more content from me. I could have narrated this video all by myself, but I chose because I am in this video so much in so many different aspects to break up the monotony of that and give other YouTubers out there their day in the sun. Other people have made videos on this subject, so why not work with them? I messaged Soraya from Where Does the Road Go and actually offered him money for me to be able to use clips from his interviews with David Politis for this video. And he said, go ahead and use them, just give him credit. I don't think an individual can be much cooler than that. And I want you guys to go over to his YouTube channel, Where Does the Road Go, watch all of his videos, tell him Fritz KO sent you, and tell him what a cool guy he is. It was hard for me to decide on how to go about making this video. I went and explored the location myself, and yet I have to tell the backstory for the people who aren't familiar with all the events that happened. So let's go ahead and start there.
The disappearance of Dennis Martin is well known to those interested in the subject of missing people. I think that there are many misconceptions out there about this case. In this video, I want to delve into some of these claims often made about this case, and see whether or not they have any validity. Because of this, I think even people familiar with this case will find new information in this video that they had not heard before. Keep in mind, this case is multifaceted and complex, with many details that are all important to achieve a proper understanding of the mystery that surrounds this story. First, I think it would be useful to anyone unfamiliar with this story to get a brief overview of the geography and key areas that will be discussed.
The Great Smoky Mountains. Such a beautiful place, but it's so vast, so mysterious. Some places has never been stepped in by man. These mountains are not only vast, some of them are over 6,000 feet tall. The Cherokee Indians, they named this place Shikanahay, the place of blue smoke. Not only that, but a lot of mystery here. Now this place here, this is a 3D map. It's 520,000 acres, or equal to 800 square miles of wilderness. Now this ain't no city park. This is remote wilderness. How vast the hollers, canyons, creeks, mountain ranges, ridges. Now this old park, the Great Smoky Mountains, is more attendance than probably any park in the nation. It has so much traffic here. There's 10 million visitors here annually. That's a lot of traffic. And most of these people just drive through and see the sights. And maybe a few thousand might go on trail, but only a handful go off trail, and some of them don't come back.
In June of 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin accompanied his family on a camping trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Alright, so this is Smoky Mountains.
A mountain range rising along the Tennessee-North Carolina border in the southeastern United States. The name Great Smoky Mountains comes from the natural fog that often hangs over the range, appearing as large smoke plumes from a distance.
This is why they call it the Smoky Mountains. Just looks like a bunch of smoke all the time.
Interestingly, this fog is caused by chemicals emitted from the local flora, chemicals that have a high vapor pressure and easily form vapors at normal temperature and pressures. Yet even having heard the scientific explanation behind the phenomenon, seeing all that fog clinging to the hilltops is a very eerie sight indeed.
It's really comfortable. Like, I felt sort of chilly, but now, after I've been moving around a little bit, I feel perfect. This is great. And the Smoky Mountains are beautiful. More than likely, I'm not going to discover anything new. This happened quite some time ago.
Hailing from nearby Knoxville, Tennessee, the Martin family had a long-running tradition of celebrating Father's Day by taking camping trips to the Great Smoky Mountains. In 1969 would mark young Dennis's first trip into the woods in the company of his father, older brother, and grandpa.
The family was familiar with the area, and it was their tradition to camp out in this area every year for Father's Day.
So basically, it looks like we have two options for getting to Spence Field. Either Russell Field Trail or Anthony Creek Trail. I don't know. We'll probably take the Russell Field Trail, but we're going to have to take Anthony Creek Trail to begin with.
The group drove out to Cades Cove, an isolated valley located in the Tennessee section of the park, then hiked out towards Russell Field, where they set up camping and began preparing for their first night under the stars. The following morning, they set off for a place known as Spence Field, a picturesque highland meadow and popular camping spot, which was bisected by the rolling hills and jagged mountain peaks of the Appalachian Trail.
Let's do it. Well, here's the start of Anthony Creek Trail, guys. I forgot to bring my right backpack. I grabbed my new backpack. I thought I'd switched all my gear over to it. I have nothing.
The events happened at Spence Field, just on the Tennessee side of the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Spence Field and its surroundings certainly make up an expansive and wild area.
Bears, cougars, mountain lions, they could be hiding in the brush anywhere and jump out at you anywhere. Fun times. In the Smokies, I guess it's quite the normal occurrence for bears to attack, maul, maim, and kill hikers. Be careful when you come out here. That is an extremely large pile of bear shit. Here's my foot to compare for size. Jesus. So glad I didn't step in that.
When the group arrived at Spence Field, Dennis and his older brother set off to explore the campsite, and reportedly talked to many of the other campers who had pitched their tents nearby. This is how they got talking to a ragtag group made up of other campers' children who made fast friends with the Martin boys. Dennis' father was pleased to see his son getting along so well with the other kids, and having his sons occupied meant the adults could get on with the important task of assembling their 4-man tent.
Another family joined the Martins, They also had a young boy, and their last name was also Martin. 3 Mr. Martins watched Dennis and 2 other boys play that afternoon. Dennis's father saw Dennis crawl into a bush, as he knew his boys liked to hide and then jump out and scare each other.
Once the task was completed, Dennis was still playing with a group of other kids, and his father says he watched as the group gleefully took up hiding positions from which to playfully ambush a group of approaching adults. When the grown-ups entered the kids' make-believe kill zone, they all jumped out, growling and roaring like wild animals as they set upon their laughing parents. All but one. All but little Dennis.
It was supposed to be a fun prank, and 3 of the boys went in one direction, while the youngest, Dennis, went the other way. The only reason he was separated from the 3 was because he had been wearing a bright red shirt, which made him easily visible, and they didn't want to get caught. Like planned, the 3 boys jumped out from the woods and surprised the adults. They all had a good laugh and then waited for Dennis to come out too.
Approximately 7 miles away, a family named the Key family, a young boy and his parents, asked a park ranger where they could see a bear. They were sent to a place 5 miles from Spence Field, called Rowan's Creek. Back at Spence Field, it wasn't long before Dennis's father had watched Dennis's companions move past the bush that Dennis was hiding in. Mr. Martin realized it had been some time since he had last seen Dennis.
His father watched with growing concern as the seconds ticked by, and Dennis had yet to emerge from his hiding spot.
So without taking his eyes off the shrub, he went to find his son.
Eventually he couldn't bear it anymore, and after rising from his camping chair, Dennis's father marched off the spot where he had last seen his 6-year-old son and began calling out his name. But what started out as stern fatherly commands soon degenerated into terrified pleas, and as he continued to call out in desperation, the other families began to realize that something was terribly wrong.
Mr. Martin went dashing into the woods and down the trail, the path of least resistance, for his son to follow. He was ex-military and in excellent shape. Mr. Martin ran 2 miles down that hill. He only stopped once he felt he had gone farther than his 6-year-old son could have gone under any conceivable circumstance in twice the time allowed. He shouted as loud as his rapid breath would permit. He ran 2 miles back and told his father.
Once Dennis's grandpa knew he was missing, he set the group into action, sending one group 2 miles up the Appalachian Trail with his son, while he led another group back towards the Cades Cove Ranger Station, arriving there around 8:30 p.m. that night.
And so what I'm thinking is, Dennis Martin's dad was not right by him when they were playing hide and seek. He may have been in the middle of the field or near the entrance. I might be wrong about this. If anyone knows, let me know. But Spence Field is a couple miles long. So it would take some time to be able to get to that area if he was far away from there. So who knows how much time could have went by. Half an hour before Dennis Martin's dad showed up. No one's ever talked about this before because I don't think any of the YouTube mystery guys have actually came here and explored the location for themselves. Something to think about.
The Rangers arrived and helped in a search that would continue on into the night. Unfortunately, that evening, heavy rains and thunder inundated the area, which made their efforts and visibility increasingly difficult. It eventually got so bad that they had to stop looking and waited out until the morning, and by then there was still no trace of Dennis Martin.
As I'm getting here, the weather is turning bad and it's raining. Kind of like, just like it did when Dennis Martin disappeared.
It was around 8:30 at night. The sun was setting, and the Rangers had quite a hike in there. Furthermore, it started to rain, and it rained hard that night. About 2.5 inches of rain came down. The temperatures dropped down to about 50 degrees, and so the real searching in earnest, by trained people or whatnot, doesn't take place really effectively until the next day.
It rained so bad that the search and rescue workers weren't able to look. They had to wait for the rain to subside. So hopefully you get a good idea of what all this looks like here from this video.
The streams then by the morning were really full and with a lot of rushing water. So the Rangers started what amounted to a Herculean effort.
Just days, thousands of volunteers and official searchers came to the area to help find the missing boy. Among those scouring included the park rangers, locals, volunteers, the National Guard, Green Berets, and even the FBI. There were helicopters and bloodhounds deployed, and at the time it was the largest search effort ever conducted in a national park.
I forgot to bring my right backpack. I grabbed my new backpack. I thought I'd switched all my gear over to it. I have nothing. So I don't have a lot of the normal things I always bring with me when I go camping and hiking.
His family described Dennis as a healthy young boy who had hiking experience, so they believed he would be able to survive and would be found alive. However, the weather in the park was increasingly becoming difficult, and the thick fog also halted parts of the search effort. Weeks and then months passed, and the number of searchers dropped considerably. Many thought the young boy had perished in the woods, but other theories also began appearing. One is that Dennis was actually kidnapped. His family described Dennis as a healthy young boy who had hiking experience, so they believed he would be able to survive and would be found alive. However, the weather in the park was increasingly becoming difficult, and the thick fog also halted parts of the search effort. Weeks and then months passed, and the number of searchers dropped considerably. Many thought the young boy had perished in the woods, but other theories also began appearing. One is that Dennis was actually kidnapped. Apparently 6 miles away from Spence Field, just hours after he was reported missing, a family named the Keys was also camping in the park. They thought they heard a boy scream, and shortly after, they saw what they thought to be a bear in the woods.
Around the time of Dennis's disappearance, Harold Key and his family had been hiking near Rowan's Creek when they asked a ranger where they could see some black bears at. The ranger pointed them towards a ridge approximately 5 miles from Spence Field, and as they reached the ridge, the Key family heard what they called an enormous and sickening scream. Within seconds, Key's son had pointed out what he thought was a bear. Key himself had deduced that it wasn't a bear at all, but it was a dark-figured, rough-looking man that was hiding in dense bushes in front of them. Key had noticed that the figure had been carrying something bright red over its shoulder, and this matched up to the outfit that William Martin reported his son was missing in. He was wearing a bright red tucked-in shirt.
And though the search for Dennis Martin began about an hour before the Key family left the park, they were unaware of the tragedy until they saw the newspaper some days later. Mr. Key sat down with a pamphlet from the park, looked at the map, and decided that the timeline and distance made perfect sense. Their sighting took place some 2 hours after Dennis went missing, and 5 miles away in a straight shot. Knowing that a child has now been missing for quite some time, and that he may have vital information on the case, he called the park authority and said he could meet them at the ranger station and take them to the exact place where he and his family saw the rough, shaggy man.
When he did finally report what he saw, the authorities dismissed it, since they said it was too far away from Spence Field and that the time frame was off.
The park authority officials said, "No, we'll come to you." And that is one of the many strange actions taken by the search operation. Anyone in law enforcement, or anyone trying to solve a mystery of any kind, should want to be with the witness at the location so that they could literally point to and examine the exact spot where the sighting took place. Follow the exact route of the shaggy man.
Did they know something that they didn't want nobody else to know? Were they wild man in this park? Were they Bigfoot in this park? Now there's been reports of feral people had been living in these mountains for years and years, and they was trying to get rid of them and didn't want the public to know.
Another common belief is that the little boy might have been killed by a wild animal, and that his remains were washed away in the heavy rains and flooding shortly after. However, the response time from when he was last seen to when his family started searching for him was so little that it would have been difficult to believe that a boy attacked by a large enough animal would not scream or shout.
I hate to say this, but there's probably a good chance that Dennis Martin was attacked by a bear.
Other conspiracy theorists believe there may be something more to the story. Many point to the mysterious appearance of armed special forces during the search. Their presence in the area was explained as them having training nearby, but at least one mysterious commenter online claimed that this was bogus, saying that they were a retired Army commander. According to them, the special forces never respond to civilian missing persons cases, especially not armed. He found it unusual that in this case the special forces were there fully armed and searching for the boy.
They come in here and created their own search party. They was independent from anything else. They was doing their own search, their own communications, and they was working on their own, not in coordination with the Park Service. So that's a mystery in itself. What was they looking for?
On top of that, many Freedom of Information requests were sent in to get any questions out of the Green Berets, but they were all ignored. Not a single one of them got accepted.
Moreover, the fact that those looking for him were highly trained in searching jungles and other rough terrain, yet they could not find any signs of the child, made it even more likely there was something stranger going on. Of what exactly, he never elaborated. Today, the case of young Dennis Martin remains a mystery.
Alright, so my son disappeared in 2014, and that whole event in my life is what got me originally involved in missing person cases. I have 3 sons. My oldest boy is autistic. My second oldest son is the one who actually went missing, and he was located and he's fine. While he was missing, I had to do something to take my mind off what was going on, and I used to work for the Michigan State Police, so I was just Googling missing persons cases. I know that's crazy that that's what I chose to do to take my mind off my son who was missing at the time, and I came across Missing 411. One of the most intriguing cases that I had found from the beginning, it was one of the very first ones that I heard about, was the case of Dennis Martin. One of the biggest searches in the history of the national parks took place when Dennis Martin disappeared. So there's lots of information on Dennis Martin's case compared to, the vast majority of all the other missing children cases out there. Something inside of me just can't help but want to go to the Smoky Mountains and explore the location where he disappeared.
Clearly this is more about a sense of a personal salvation, a personal solving of an internal crisis. Your quest to figure out the mystery of what happened to Dennis Martin. As I understand it, he was also a special needs child.
Yes.
I can see how that could hit home. I think through investigating this case, we'll come across something unknowable, something that will make you question your understanding of everyday normal reality. You run this forum, you run this Missing 411 alternative. I think you should go out there.
About an hour away from the Great Smoky Mountains. I'm about an hour away from the Great Smoky Mountains, Spence Field. And I'm not looking at the camera while I drive, in case you guys are wondering. I'm looking at the road. So if the footage sucks, that's why. And I apologize. But I wanted you guys to see how crazy these roads are. Twists and turns all through the mountains. And of course, as soon as I start recording, they're pretty tame at this moment, but they were pretty crazy a second ago. Alright, so this is Smoky Mountains. I am almost to Spence Field. I told you guys I would show you everything. Hopefully this video turns out great as I'm paying attention to what I'm doing driving and just holding the camera. So basically as I'm getting here, the weather is turning bad and it's raining. Kind of like, just like it did when Dennis Martin disappeared. It rained so bad that the search and rescue workers weren't able to look. They had to wait for the rain to subside. So hopefully you get a good idea of what all this looks like here from this video. So basically it looks like we have two options for getting to Spence Field. Either Russell Field Trail or Anthony Creek Trail. I don't know. We'll probably take the Russell Field Trail, but we're going to have to take Anthony Creek Trail to begin with. Let's do it. Well, here's the start of Anthony Creek Trail, guys. You have the photo that I sent you online. Do you see where the actual bush is? If you look around, it's actually an open area behind and to the sides of the bush. It's hard to imagine that a child or anybody wearing a red t-shirt could disappear from this location. And it's actually said that Dennis Martin's father was so baffled by this, but none of the other YouTubers or even David Plettis or anyone has ever shown this photo before. But no one has ever mentioned how incredibly, almost impossible it would be to disappear from this location in a red t-shirt. Because when you picture it in your mind, you imagine that there's a bush and then there's a bunch of wooded area and trees right behind this bush that Dennis must have disappeared into. But that's not the case when you see the real life example. This is the supposed location where he disappeared from. This is the bush where his father dug up the bush out of frustration, wondering what happened to his son.
Well, most of the, if I understand it correctly, with the missing 401 cases, especially throughout the world, the colors red and orange people wearing those colors are often abducted by unknown means or go missing by unknown means.
I forgot to bring my right backpack. I grabbed my new backpack. I thought I'd switched all my gear over to it. I have nothing. I don't have a lot of the normal things I always bring with me when I go camping and hiking. It's really comfortable. Like, I felt sort of chilly, but now after I've been moving around a little bit, I feel perfect. I don't have any of my survival gear, but I do have pepper spray. Gosh, poor Dennis Martin. The more I start seeing these signs, the more I'm thinking some kind of bear or something probably got a hold of him.
Well, as you look at the bush and where Dennis Martin was taken, you can see where the father or the other people were standing. So whatever took Dennis had to understand the line of sight of Dennis in relationship to the other people. So we're talking about some being that had a level of intelligence capable of understanding where Dennis was, where other people were, and a pathway in which to take Dennis and run without being seen.
I hate to say this, but there's probably a good chance that Dennis Martin was attacked by a bear. Looks like we're gonna have to go 3.5 more miles, and we're an hour and a half into this before we get to the Appalachian Trail right next to Spence Field. That's where Dennis Martin disappeared. So that way. As you can see, I'm actually pretty high up now. There's not much above me.
I think it is some sort of ancient and atavistic type being who's inhabiting that area. It is a mountaintop. It is part of an ancient trail. Everything I know about paranormal beings and where they would inhabit. Spence Field has. It's a field. It's an open area. It's on top of a mountain. It's prime forest. All of these things would lead me to believe that something is there.
As you can see, I'm actually pretty high up now. There's not much above me. We'll continue to going higher. It's really weird. I'm sweating my ass off and freezing at the same time. Whatever. I will have to take a nice long break at Spence Field. So I'm basically at the top of the Smoky Mountains. I'm gonna go a little further here, obviously. Oh man. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tired. I didn't realize I was gonna go up the mountain. That's really stupid. So basically, when people go missing, I think they go out in the middle of nowhere, hike to a point of exhaustion, then delirium sets in, dehydration, lack of food, cold weather temperatures, dressed inappropriately. All these different things can make people do crazy things. Alright, let's go look at Spence Field and lay down. Well, there's Spence Field. I don't know if you guys can see it through the trees or not. So, I'm hot and sweaty, and it's like 50 degrees here. It's a really interesting predicament that I find myself in. Because, you know, hypothermia and whatnot. This is the flattest part of the trail I have been on. And I'm at the very top of the mountain. Can you see sky there? And you can see sky there. Well, no, you can't see sky, but you can tell by the trees it doesn't really go up much higher than this. I've went down the wrong trail. I don't really know where it's going to go. Where I need to go is that way. But there's no trail there anymore. And it was weird. I went through all kinds of hell just to find out where Spence Field is. And I'm pretty sure that's it right behind me. But I just don't know how to get down there. And quite frankly, I haven't seen anyone on this trail in miles. I saw 3 people, and then I saw 2 ladies. Well, I saw 3 guys and 2 ladies. And that was hours ago. And I haven't seen anyone on the particular trail that I'm on now. Oh, this is depressing, but I think it's best that I turn around and go back. It's almost 6 o'clock, and it'll be dark in 2 hours. So even if I turn around and make it out of here now, I will not be able to get back till it's dark. And the saddest part about all of this is that, I'm sorry guys, I'm really tired here. The saddest part about all of this is I didn't practice hiking for this or anything, and I should have realized how much mountain climbing I would have to do. And I've done 5 miles already. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand about hiking in the mountains is hikers compare mountain hiking and land hiking. Land hiking a mile, they say hiking a mile in the mountains is the equivalent of land hiking 5 miles. Think about that. That's a hell of a lot of strain on oneself. I mean, I'm a sweaty mess and it's freezing here. Think about that. This sucks. So I think I'm going to leave. This is not how I wanted this to end, but I told you guys I'd share everything with you. I don't want to be another missing 411 statistic, that's for sure. I've already saw 2 bears when I first was coming in here too. Well, one thing's for sure is the woods in one aspect is exactly like the city. The freaks come out at night. I would have to hike another 5 miles. Oh, it's raining now. I do have a tarp. I mean, I do have a poncho, so don't freak out. But, I would have to hike another 5 miles, I think, if this is the other trail, to get down to Spence Field, because it's going to make me go all the way around it. And there's no way in hell I could get out of here tonight. And I parked in a place, because for some reason there's no overnight parking around here. And I'm guessing that's because they don't want people to get attacked by animals. And I showed you guys all the signs on the way in of people that were attacked by animals. People are regularly attacked, mauled, and killed by animals in the wild, especially in the Great Smoky Mountains. And not just Dennis Martin has disappeared here. All sorts of different interesting people that haven't even made it into 411 cases have disappeared.
To this day, there's 5 people missing in the park. Dennis Martin, age 6, 1969. Trinity Gibson, age 16, 1976, and Gregory Ball. Thelma Martin, age 58, 1981, from the Deep Springs area. Christopher Cessna, age 45, 2011, from Newfound Gap. And Derek Lampkin, age 24, 2012, from Newfound Gap, missing. Now, these people have never been found. No clues, no traces of them. Just like they was with a group of people and just disappeared.
Vehicles have just been found on the side of the road with the doors open and the cars running, and these people missing, never to be seen again.
And from what I've heard from the missing 411 cases, people who have gone out there by themselves have definitely felt a presence. They've felt almost walls of fear wash over them. I sent you out there after a conversation, or I didn't send you out there. We talked, and I told you that there's a being behind it all. And in some part, you had that thought going through your head that there was a being out there. And you encountered a force. And that much we can say is true. Some force you encountered. And that is something that has been named in many of these cases. People are experiencing something that touches on the periphery of what they know to be part of our world. I'm just glad you didn't become a missing 411 case yourself.
It's hiking down stuff like this that makes you fall in love with these shoes. I mean, one false move and all this wet crap, and you go over the side. And, you know, look, I mean, this is where we are, and you're down there. And it doesn't even look as bad on my camera. Like, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that doesn't look scary. But in real life, that's like 100 feet down. Way down, all the way down. You see this valley here? It goes way down. So, just crying about that for you guys. Well, I just wanted to make sure you guys realize that. 5 miles up, 5 miles down. I'm going to GPS this all out too and figure out exactly how far I walked to the T. I'm certainly tired. I've certainly been through a lot of crazy crap over 3 crazy bridges. Oh, look at this hokey crap. It's kind of neat. There's it. How many of you think I'll fall in here? All right. This is whack. Again. And we wonder why no one ever came out here to video this for us. Another hokey bridge. So basically, when they brought in the Army Rangers to search for Dennis Martin, and people are wondering why did they bring them in by helicopter, I guess there's no direct road access to Spence Field. So, that was the only way they could get there. I never heard anyone talk about that before, because most of these people have never come out here. Oh, I'm tired. I'm like 3-4 miles into this. These little mini waterfalls are cool. I've walked through streams a few times. I've submerged these in water. I didn't want to, but it happened. These shoes are probably the best gripping shoes I've had. I'm stepping on some really slippery small rocks. Let's go back. And I'm doing this at a brisk pace, as you guys can see. So far, I think I do like these shoes. This must be what the guy was talking about when he said, "You're not going to make it." You like that? You like that? Whoa, that rock was wobbly. All right. Well, we just crossed that. This is an interesting spot in our journey. I see why the guy at the beginning of the trail didn't like my first shoes. Okay. Let's put these bad boys to the test. This really is gonna be a fucking test. Jesus Christ. The shit I do to myself. If I get wet feet out here, you know how bad that would suck? I'm so far now. So this is really where these shoes need to shine. Alright, where should I go from here? Alright guys, this is a real test. Ugh. Ugh. Alright. Well, these are not stable. I don't know if I can make it to that other rack. Oh, fucking falling in. Get our footing really good. Oh, oh, oh. Well, we submerged the shoes. Let's see if they get wet. Oh, crap. Believe it or not, I'm actually having a good time. There's two things that you should make sure you keep dry when you're hiking at all times. The first is obviously your feet. That's what we're talking about here. The second is your head and your hair. If you got cold feet and a cold head, it's a recipe for pneumonia in cold weather. Well, if there's any animals around here, they sure as heck, well, which there certainly is, they sure as heck know I'm here. Because I'm running through the woods, running my mouth like crazy. And, I mean, keep in mind, I'm doing 3 different things here. I'm recording with the camera, I'm walking, fourth, and I'm also talking, but that's the third thing. But the fourth thing is I'm also trying not to fall down and kill myself while I'm doing this. So, It's impressive that I can keep the amount of train of thought that I have. Anyway, I'm just rambling bullshit at this point. I just really wanted to show you guys how crazy this is. See, you'd be alright to fall down there. You'd probably get hurt. But I really wished the camera detail on my phone was a little better. That's why I need you guys to subscribe if you want specific content like this. Stuff that I go out of my way to do for you guys. So I can have, you know, a little extra cash to be able to do this stuff. Alright, I think you guys get the gist. But I'll record my feet through this crap. Here's one thing you have to realize. When you get tired when you're hiking, that is when people hurt themselves. I have been taking breaks. I just don't record them. I took 3 breaks to the top of the hill. And then once I got to the top of the hill, was that my 3rd break? I don't know, but it was the equivalent of almost like 2 breaks because I sat there and had a cigarette, recorded a bunch of crap, tried to get a little bit of cell phone reception to talk to my kids a little bit, and yeah, had another cigarette, and here I am on the way back now.
So you end up encountering some bears. Walk me through the first couple of seconds. What happens?
I don't want to take my gaze off them. I don't want to take my eyes off them. In the animal kingdom, that's a sign of weakness. If you turn your back to a predator, they probably will attack you, like a bear, a mountain lion, a wolf. As intimidating as it can be, you have to keep your eyes locked on them.
Man, guys, there's a bear on the trail on the exit to leave. Shit, I don't know what to do.
I just immediately stood up and started walking not in their direction, which was around them in a circle.
Alright guys, that bear got him down.
In the video, I show back to my location where I was squatting, where I originally seen the bear in the tree, and you can see they are now, at that time, where I was. So, the more I think on it, if I would have fooled around and hung around in that area any more than what I did, I think they would have attacked me.
I'm just gonna keep my phone on. He's totally looking at me. He totally fucking sees me. I'll try to walk around his ass. Alright. So I'm fucking freaked out. The bears came down. And they could just come fucking maul me anytime. The bears came down. I'm fucking freaked out. The bears came down. And they could just come fucking maul me anytime. I'm just gonna keep recording. I'll get the fuck out of here. Don't run. That's the thing. Don't run. Yeah, you don't want to run. But I do want to get over here. I have to stay calm. Get back to the trail. Where the fuck did they go? That's not good. I think he's over by that building. I think they're actually following me. Shit. No, they're still down there. See him? He's still over there. Like behind something. I don't know. Let's go get a look. So I just ran into a mama bear, papa bear, and excuse me. I just ran into a mama bear, the papa bear, and the baby. They were on the trail. I told you guys I'd show you everything.
They chased you so much that you had to actually get off the trail.
Yeah, I was running up a mountain to get away from them. Not running, because you don't want to run from predators either, but I was briskly walking up that side of that mountain. With my face, my front of myself constantly facing them, which is hard enough to do in of itself. Walking away from something up the wooded mountain backwards without falling over. I mean, I'm impressed that I handled it as smoothly as I did. People probably won't give me as much credit as is deserved, considering that's what I was doing. Walking backwards, recording, trying to avoid being mauled by bears without falling over. You know, while I'm walking through sticks and brush and all sorts of things.
Well, you survived. That's all the praise you need. I believe that there are paranormal beings behind many of the missing 411 cases. I believe whether they are, could they be a Bigfoot, skunk ape, ancient gods, or all of the above. At least in some cases, I do believe those beings are responsible. And many people talk about these beings, these spirits, having control over animals. And in this case, I believe you encountered some type of being like that. And that being had control over the bears and was letting you know it was aware of you, that it could track you, that it could follow you. David Paulides talks about, or he alludes to, the possibility that there is something unknown causing these disappearances. And I believe in your video, this is the first time anyone has captured parts of the interaction on video. You caught something unknown, my friend. You encountered something unknown, and you nearly became a missing 411 victim yourself.
So you say it's some sort of demon that you think is responsible for some of the missing persons cases. What sort of demon do you think was in the Smoky Mountains that day when I went there?
Fritz, the only way to find out is to go back.
Well, if you guys like this video and you want more videos like this, you know what to do. Hit the notification bell too. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
There are many theories about what happened to 6-year-old Dennis Martin.
The details of the search efforts are extensive, and an entire video could be made of all those details alone. Here is a more abridged version. Spence Field became the search base camp, with a headquarters as well as a makeshift heliport. At its peak, records show up to 1,400 searchers. These included rangers, firefighters, policemen, and people from other walks of life. Many civilian volunteer searchers were brought in to assist, but most were inexperienced. This ended up only causing confusion that slowed search efforts. Search dogs arrived in order to attempt to track young Dennis, and a detachment of Green Berets were also called in to assist during this time. So many searchers had arrived that their tracks cluttered the area, possibly damaging vital clues. On June 17th, searchers discovered footprints on a trail near West Prong.
During the search, volunteers had discovered a footprint approximately 3.5 miles from the Spence Field base, running towards a stream. The tracks ran straight into the stream where they ended, and according to investigators, the tracks were of a child's bare foot and an Oxford-type shoe, similar to the exact shoe that Dennis had been wearing when he was missing.
Shockingly, a shoe print belonging to that of a child was actually found at one point, but the track was dismissed as belonging to one of the Boy Scouts that was helping with the search. Later, however, investigators kicked themselves when they found that the tracks were determined to have come from a child who was missing one shoe, which disappeared on the banks of a stream. Some suggesting it was possible that the tracks belonged to Martin, and this theory was supported when a discarded child-sized shoe and sock were found just 3 days later. Although search and rescue personnel continued their search for more than 2 weeks, scouring the hillsides night and day in continual shifts, no further clues to Martin's whereabouts were ever found.
They found a child's footprint. The FBI disregarded it.
At 73 years old,
It's happy whatever bird it is.
Dwight McCarter has spent his entire life in these mountains.
It may be a wren. Wrens do a lot of calling like that, you know.
While the retired ranger can name every plant and creature, his real talent is tracking.
My grandmother taught me to look for the white. She says, follow the white. It's where the child or the adult stepped on it, and it's real fresh.
One of the top man trackers in the nation, McCarter has assisted in more than 100 searches in the Smokies, but it's the first person in his logbook that's never been found.
It's obvious that the paranormal side of me wants to believe that this was an abduction of some sort, like by a creature, and many speculate it was a Bigfoot-like entity, based on the amount of response by the government.
But I have come up with 2 things.
Family hiking near Cades Cove Loop Road may have heard him.
They heard a little boy scream. The father knew he saw this dirty man. From where the sound of the little boy, he referred to him as disheveled, and the guy ran. And the guy got in the van and drove off at a high rate of speed. So I don't know if that was Dennis, you know. They heard a little boy scream. The father knew he saw this dirty man. From where the sound of the little boy, he referred to him as disheveled, and the guy ran. And the guy got in the van and drove off at a high rate of speed. And the guy got in the van and drove off at a high rate of speed. And the guy got in the van and drove off at a high rate of speed.
This is Dwight McCarter. He was one of their top trackers for the park. Now, he's retired now, but he done a lot of trouble searching for this boy.
Contrary to FBI belief, tracker and now retired ranger Dwight McCarter took William Martin to the spot where the sighting had occurred to prove it was doable in a short time frame, and they found out that it actually was. This is where Martin believes that the FBI and other special forces had actually been withholding information from him throughout the investigation, as he had only heard of this information after Key went to the press.
This incident would essentially be ignored by news and search officials. But Bill Martin took a deep interest in the sighting, believing it to be evidence supporting the theory that Dennis was kidnapped. Mr. Martin always held the belief that Dennis was abducted, especially once he learned of Harold Key's sighting. He believed there was no way that Dennis could have disappeared in the short time that he had lost sight of him. Authorities, however, refused to entertain the idea that Dennis was abducted. Bill Martin would not give any more interviews regarding his son's disappearance for many more years.
An investigator by the name of David Politis got in contact with Mr. Martin, who told him that his wife and he had moved on from talking about their son. After some convincing, William Martin had told them about the Key family, as well as Jim Reich, an FBI agent presiding over the case of Dennis and multiple other missing cases in the park. He had apparently committed suicide 15 years later. On top of that, many Freedom of Information requests were sent in to get any questions out of the Green Berets, but they were all ignored. Not a single one of them got accepted.
I've listened to David Pletty's talk about Dennis Martin on various different podcasts, like Where Does the Road Go and Coast to Coast AM and various different other. He's been on many different podcasts. And when he talks about Dennis Martin's father, I don't know, I just can really relate to that.
In 2012, David Paulides released his book, Missing 411, The Eastern United States. This book contains a lengthy portion regarding the disappearance of Dennis Martin. Perhaps the most well-known sections are from the interviews he did with Bill Martin and former Ranger Dwight McCarter. These two interviews, provided by Mr. Paulides, have provided the foundation for much of the modern discourse that takes place regarding the Dennis Martin case. Paulides states that he showed up at Mr. Martin's home in the summer of 2011. Mr. Martin eventually agreed to speak with Paulides. Bill Martin stated that he and a National Park serviceman hiked from Spence Field to the area where Harold Key had his sighting in about 90 minutes. Martin also told Paulides that he met with Harold Key in person and discussed his sighting. Martin claimed that Mr. Key said the man he saw moving through the forest was carrying something over his shoulder.
There's a famous case out of Great Smoky Mountain National Park where a boy named Dennis Martin disappeared. Without getting into the specifics, the most important part of that case had to do with a family making an observation of something like a person or a biped carrying something on its shoulder. And that's the most important part of the case, because then you see this thing leave, and it was right after Dennis disappeared. And they sent me the package on the Dennis Martin case, and there's nothing in that case file about the Park Service special agent or the FBI agent interviewing that family about what they saw.
The insinuation being that this man might have been carrying Dennis. Bill Martin's claim that Mr. Key told him the mysterious figure in the forest was carrying something on his shoulder has often been a key element. Paulides states in his book that he was unable to interview Harold Key directly because he died in 2010. And I was able to confirm that Jim Reich did indeed die by a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, but nobody can be sure what kind of demons the man was facing. When you consider the Key sighting, the Key children say that they thought they saw a bear. Harold Key thinks he saw a man. That can lead people to begin considering some amalgamation of the two. Then just add the fact that it was carrying something over its shoulder, and it doesn't take too much consideration before some people get to this. Paulides also interviewed a man named Dwight McCarter. Paulides' interview with him provided new insights. McCarter agreed that a man could carry a small child from Spence Field to the location of the Key sighting. When asked who he thought made the terrible scream, McCarter suggested it might have been Dennis. Paulides then points out that the description sounds like it was too loud to be a child, possibly suggesting that the scream was made by whoever the Keys had seen in the forest. When asked why he thought the Keys' children saw a bear while Harold Key himself saw a man, McCarter responded that there were wild men in the park, that they are hairy and filthy and wear skins of dead animals. They live deep in the park and survive off the land with little to no contact with people. McCarter states that he was only aware of one wild man at the time, and he did not live near the location Dennis went missing. McCarter was very clear that the wild men were humans. Dwight McCarter's use of the term wild man is also worth discussing. While McCarter was very clear that he was only talking about human beings, it is worth noting that the term wild man is documented far back in history. Many newspapers in the early 1900s use wild man to describe what most people today would call a Bigfoot or Sasquatch, a cryptid that has really ingrained itself in this case for many years. You will find many people to this day claiming that Dennis Martin was abducted by this cryptid. Regarding the wild man that McCarter has become so famous for speaking of, he states the man's real name was Arlie Phillips and that he lived in Cataloochee. This area is far from Spence Field. He describes the man as living in a secluded cabin in the woods and eating out of garbage cans, but being generally harmless. The few pictures that exist of the so-called wild man of the Cataloochee show him to be a fairly normal-looking individual, revealing that Dwight McCarter's wild man is not really as wild as some would have people believe. Arlie Phillips passed away in 2010, but the myth of feral humans or wild men in the Smokies continues to be perpetuated by people online to this day. Paulides asked about the Green Berets who showed up to assist in the search, and whether or not McCarter thought it was strange that they were searching while armed with weapons.
Out of the blue show up the Green Berets, and they come in helicopters, and they bring their own communication system. And McCarter re-interviewed him, and he says it was very strange. He says nobody took responsibility as to who requested them, even though they were there's rumors out there that they were training in the area. Nothing could be confirmed like that.
First, let's check the official National Parks report on the Dennis Martin search, which is readily available from the Park Service itself. The almost 100-page report contains plenty of detail on the day-to-day search efforts and lots of correspondence between officials. Immediately in the first few pages, we find that the Green Berets were called on June 16th, 2 days after Dennis went missing, when Ranger Myers contacted U.S. Forest Service District Ranger Duke Barr in Nantahala, who in turn contacted a man named Colonel Kinney, who requested and obtained permission from the 3rd Army headquarters at Fort Benning to transfer 40 special forces to the area. A whole 500 Green Berets were actually on maneuvers in the Nantahala Gorge area and were available to assist, but only a small fraction were sent over the course of the search. Had these men not been training so close by, it is likely there never would have been special forces on scene. Other information provided in the Parks report seems to show that the NPS had at least some contact and collaboration with the Green Berets, as they were directly involved in the extraction plan if Dennis Martin was to be found. They would helicopter to the location and rappel down to retrieve the boy. It's still entirely possible that for the most part the special forces acted alone, but this is not necessarily abnormal. The military has its own chain of command, and it's unlikely to integrate itself with civilians or even the Park Service. Regarding the claims about armed Green Berets, when I initially heard this, I always imagined a fully kitted soldier with an M16. However, looking through the photographs taken of military personnel at the time, there really is not a long gun to be found. It's possible that they were carrying sidearms, but this is hardly unusual. I carry a sidearm when I go hiking in areas that have bears or other dangerous wildlife, and the Smoky Mountains certainly has these animals. This is not definitive proof that the Green Berets were not carrying automatic weapons into the forest, because there are very few pictures readily available, but I did not see any evidence of it. This was not the first nor the last time Green Berets would be involved in the search for a missing person. Overall, I do not think it is strange that the Green Berets were on scene at this search.
Dennis Martin's dad had a member of Park Service with him all the time. And he had told them that any valuable lead, anything you get on my son, I want to be the first person to know. and he had that agreement with the Park Service. It appeared from the very beginning that they were trying to withhold this information from him.
Bill Martin's displeasure with park officials and the FBI is apparent in the official NPS report, as he wrote a letter to them expressing his frustration. He reportedly did keep Mr. Martin in the dark with regards to information about the search for his son, but there may not have been any nefarious intentions behind it. A letter to the Chief of Park Operations states that Chief Ranger Lee Sneddon sat down with Mr. Martin and discussed his concerns, and that they were resolved to Mr. Martin's satisfaction. The letter goes on to state that it is not the FBI's purpose or practice during the course of an investigation to inform people outside the Bureau, not even those most vitally concerned, of the facts of the case as they develop them. One can only imagine how angering it would be to have the FBI withholding information about the disappearance of your son. But that does not mean it is altogether strange behavior for the FBI to do so, regardless of how much we think it is immoral. Oftentimes this is done to preserve the integrity of a case, and not leak vital information that could be used by potential suspects. However, as far as we are aware, the FBI has never officially stated that they believe Dennis had been abducted, or that there were any suspects. The letter also adds that Mr. Martin seems to have been needlessly concerned about the FBI getting the facts, which is the very expertise of the FBI. This statement is frankly ridiculous. Of course the father would be concerned about the FBI getting all of the relevant facts, especially when it seems the FBI are not taking important leads seriously. But is it possible the FBI had been taking these leads seriously all along, but never admitted to it? To this day, if you FOIA the Dennis Martin case file from the FBI, you will get over 100 completely blacked out pages. If they never had a suspect and never believed it was an abduction, what is there to hide over 50 years later? Bill Martin's claim that Mr. Key told him the mysterious figure in the forest was carrying something on his shoulder has often been a key element. Paulides states in his book that he was unable to interview Harold Key directly because he died in 2010. The most important interview Bouchard conducted was with Harold Key himself. Contrary to some sources that say Mr. Key passed away in 2010, he was still very much alive in the summer of 2016 when Bouchard spoke with him.
Harold noticed a white male, he said was in his 30s or 40s, not dressed in any type of animal clothing or anything like that, but when he used the term disheveled, when I interviewed him, he said disheveled. I said, what did you mean by disheveled? He said, well, his clothes were like they had gone through brush, and he was sweating profusely. They see him get into a white car, and he says the white car, I didn't pay attention to the make or model, but it was up on the road when we pulled in, and it took off at a high rate of speed, and it threw gravel and everything into the woods. What wasn't told in any of these stories, because this was the first interview that Harold really had after that with anybody, was that Harold said that he specifically heard somebody up in the mountain range scream, "Help."
Bouchard also interviewed Mr. Key's daughter, Wanda Key Grandstaff, who told him that her father was a World War II veteran, a very tough man, and that had he seen someone carrying a child over their shoulder, as has been perpetuated, he would have gone after the man. The fact is, Harold Key has never gone on record, in 1969 or in 2016, stating that the man he saw was carrying anything. His story has not changed much in the 50 years that have passed. Underreported newspaper clippings from 1969 reveal that Mr. Key did in fact tell reporters that the man he saw entered a white car. Mr. Key was adamant that he only saw one man in the woods that day, and he walked out of the forest and drove off in the white car. Mr. Key told Bouchard he never used the term moonshiner or wild man to describe the person he saw. Harold Key also spoke to Bouchard about the very strange experience of receiving a phone call at home from an unknown individual. This person apparently told him that the missing child was none of his business. He says the following day, FBI agents Jim Reich and Wallace Estell came to his home to interview him regarding his Rowan's Creek sighting. Wallace Estell was the second FBI agent involved in the Dennis Martin case. Apparently, he was more in charge of dealing with the Martin family, while Jim Reich dealt more with the day-to-day search. I was able to confirm that Wallace Estell was an FBI agent in the Tennessee area at this time. After the FBI agents finished interviewing Mr. Key, they told him not to talk about the incident with anyone. The FBI agents later went on to meet with Mr. Key a second time when they met him at Rowan's Creek. Mr. Key states that while driving en route to Rowan's Creek, he was intercepted by the FBI and then taken there. This is confirmed in the official NPS report. 2 years later, Mr. Key would receive a telephone call from the unknown individual, telling him that the case is closed and to forget what he's heard. Mr. Key would have no reason to hide particular facts in the late stages of his life.
Why did he talk to you, by the way?
Well, what he told me when I had talked to him, you know, he was, even for 93, he was very sharp. And he was very direct to the point. Southern hospitality, unbelievable. And he said, listen, and he says, listen, kid. And at that time I was 50-something years old. He said, let me tell you what, kid, listen. He says, I'm 93 years old. The two FBI agents that investigated it have passed away. He said, most of the people that were involved in the case passed away. What the hell are they going to do to me if I tell you?
Yeah.
I would strongly encourage anyone with an interest in the Dennis Martin disappearance to read Mr. Bouchard's book. The information is concise and well-sourced. Additionally, you can listen to an in-depth interview with Bouchard regarding this case on the Micah Hanks Program podcast.
The last thing I ever want to do is rag on anyone, but there is a whole lot of different YouTubers and internet/mystery solvers out there that are providing people with all sorts of different inaccurate information. In the comment section, I will share links to videos that I recommend you check out that tend to have more accurate information in them than others. And it's scary to find out how much inaccurate information David Politis has been providing to people. Always do your own research.
You can't get into the concept that, hey, this is right and that is wrong and there is no in-between, because that's not true. There are all kinds of in-between all the time. And truth is elusive, folks. I have to tell you this. It's elusive at best, and it's hard to find. And the moment you think you know it all, you have lost yourself again. Listen to everyone, read everything, believe absolutely nobody, including me, including your mother, including your pastor, your preacher, your priest, your Uncle Bob, and anybody else that you can think of, unless you can prove it in your own research. And research, it doesn't mean getting a book off the library shelf and reading it and saying, well, he said it, so it must be true. Because I wrote a book, you see. And I'm telling you, don't believe me unless in your own research you can prove what it is that I'm telling you. The moment that you say, this guy right here, I like him. I like what he says. He's right. I'm going to listen to him. And anybody that says anything different to him is wrong. You've just totally destroyed yourself. And you are at the mercy of whatever manipulation they want to throw your way, because you've already determined that they're telling you the truth no matter what. You don't investigate. You have accepted blindly. That's the most dangerous thing that can happen to anyone. It is wrong for us to ever get into that kind of thinking.
If anybody knows a government-trained remote viewer, we would like to start working with one of them.
Okay. CanAmMissing.com. You can contact David through the site.
During an interview on the Terribly Vexed podcast in April of 2021, McCarter recalls an incident during the early days of the search. He says that he was going down the Boat Mountain Trail when he caught the scent of what he felt certain was a decomposing human body in the direction of West Prong. McCarter is adamant that the smell was that of a human, not a crow, and he believes the Martin boy to be somewhere in the area of West Prong.
And I told Arthur and JR, I says, I smell something dead off in on West Prong.
Another key incident involving McCarter occurred in 1985, when an illegal ginseng harvester told McCarter that he had found skeletal remains in the vicinity of Big Hollow, not far from Spence Field.
A man who had apparently been illegally collecting American ginseng in the park claimed to have come across the skeletal remains of a child while exploring the woods. The man said he should have reported the find, but was terrified of being prosecuted for his prohibited herbal hobby. Not only that, but he was also unable to point investigators in the direction of the site he'd found the bones in the first place.
For those who don't know, the illegal harvesting of ginseng is a problem in the Smoky Mountains. The anonymous hunter said that the remains were that of a child, and that he made this discovery sometime in the early 70s and thought it might be Dennis Martin. He was afraid of coming forward because of the illegal activities he was engaged in at the time, and his general distrust of the authorities. McCarter knew this individual and believed his story to be credible. A volunteer search team was put together and went out to Big Hollow in search of the remains. Nothing was found, but many years had already passed, and the ground at the time was reportedly covered in a thick layer of decayed foliage. This would make finding buried remains without an exact location near impossible. No further searches of the area have been conducted that I'm aware of.
If you look up the Smoky Mountains, the amount of things that are put down by trees and other different plants in the area, the amount of foliage that is dropped, creates an extra 1.5 inches of land mass every year. So you got to think about, this happened in the 1960s, how much land is on top of everything that was there when this happened. So everything related to that that could be found is definitely probably going to be buried at this point.
That would be 5 feet of earth at this point.
Yeah, that's quite a bit, and people don't really realize that.
And if there's any trace in these woods, McCarter says Mother Nature has hidden it away.
For every year that the remains lay in the woods, the Great Smoky Mountains Park layers up 1 inch of debris. And Dennis is lost in '69. How many inches is that? This is 2017. Where would you look?
If you had to look at all the evidence that you have diligently gone out and sought after and retrieved, what seems to be the most tangible lead in terms of what might get to the bottom of what happened to Dennis Lloyd Martin?
Well, I think the real tangible lead you have now, probably the one and the only one that still exists, based on the information I was provided by each person that I had interviewed, if their information was correct and nobody was making any misleading statements, I probably think that more than likely Harold Key had scared away somebody that may have possibly attempted to abduct Dennis Martin. I believe at that point Dennis Martin wandered off, ended up in the area of the Big Hollow, and had passed away from exposure.
There have been many theories that have attempted to explain what happened to young Dennis Martin that day. Most detectives, both amateur and professional, believe that Dennis became disoriented whilst looking for a hiding place, maybe even forgetting his way back to camp when he emerged from it. Either way, Dennis then strayed further from the camp and could easily have fallen down one of the many steep slopes and ravines that dotted the area surrounding Spence Field.
People speculate that the boy could have fallen somewhere that the investigators hadn't seen and died from either impact, trauma, malnutrition, thirst, or even hypothermia.
One false move and all this wet crap, and you go over the side. And, you know, look, I mean, this is where we are, and you're down there. And it doesn't even look as bad on my camera. Like, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that doesn't look scary. But in real life, that's like 100 feet down. Way down, all the way down. You see this valley here? It goes way down.
However, Dennis was wearing a bright red t-shirt when he went missing, not something that would be easy for search and rescue teams to miss. Dennis would have to be completely covered in foliage to remain undetected with that color of shirt, and despite it being feasible due to his small size, the likelihood of that is extremely low. Others are quick to remind us of the presence of black bears in the area, as well as copperhead vipers and feral pigs, all of which would have posed a considerable threat to 6-year-old Martin. At the peak of the search operation, more than 1,400 people were operating in the few square miles around Spencefield, but not a single one found anything that could lead them to the missing boy. However, in the aftermath of the operation, the search efforts drew a great deal of criticism from search and rescue experts far and wide, who said the large number of personnel involved potentially obscuring tracks in ground that was already difficult to track over due to heavy rain.
If we put all of this information together, it can point us in a few possible directions. Dwight McCarter believes Dennis Martin is somewhere along West Prong. The footprint possibly matching Dennis was found nearby, and the skeleton allegedly discovered by the ginseng hunter in Big Hollow is close to West Prong. Could Dennis Martin have gotten lost, followed the West Prong before finally succumbing to exposure or some other cause in Big Hollow? Mr. Key was not able to pinpoint the exact location of the scream he heard, only that it seemed to come from a great distance. Did the scream come from Dennis Martin? If it did, then was he injured? Is it possible that Mr. Key walked in on an aborted kidnapping? Today we have more accurate details than ever, but many questions still remain. It does seem that the two most likely places Dennis could be found are either in the Rowans Creek area or in the West Prong Big Hollow area. It is truly unfortunate that a more thorough search of Big Hollow was never performed. If searchers had used cadaver dogs, maybe they could have found something. It is likely we will never know what truly happened to Dennis Martin, whether he simply became lost, or he was abducted or attacked by a wild animal. However, there still may be a chance that his remains could be found and provide some answers. This could at least give the Martin family, who has had to endure the unimaginable, some amount of closure.
There's nothing like a nice, fresh, clean shirt. Oh, it smells so good. This one smells so bad. Well, I'm a hot, sweaty mess, so I had to change my old stinky shirt. Put on my... I have one other clean shirt besides this one. No, I have two. I lied. And I have a... You know what? I should probably change my socks, too. Yes. Oh. You know, I don't get the opportunity to just sit here and shoot the shit with you guys on the top of the mountain very much. But one thing I want to let you know is I appreciate all your guys' involvement on my YouTube channel, in my forums, and just your existence in general. Most of you are pretty decent people. And I enjoy chatting with you in the comment sections of my YouTube channel and my forum. And if you have friends you think that might be interested in my YouTube videos, I know they're all over the place on all sorts of different topics. Feel free to send them my way. Oh, God. Oh, we got the schnickel Fritz this time, but we certainly did try. It's just because I grabbed the wrong backpack. sucks. But that's the way this cookie is crumbling. Yeah, there's just crap everywhere. It's kind of funny that whatever the hell that is. There we go. If you want more videos like this, tutorial videos where I try out new products, hiking gear, and various different this, that, and the other, like with the firearm videos I make all the time, then tell me in the comments section. If there's stuff you want me to look at and check out for you that you think I might like to take along with me hiking or something, tell me about it. I'll bring it. What do you think of my feet? Pretty sexy? They've paid their dues in life, that's for sure. Oh, man, I can't believe I'm going to walk 10 miles today. I did not really prepare for this. I'm probably going to sleep like a baby. Oh, probably get a hotel here or something. I don't want to. I'm so cheap. It's 5 something. There's no way I'm going to get out of here before, you know, before the end of, or before it becomes dark. There's no way I'm getting out of here before it becomes dark. It's almost 6 o'clock. And it's probably going to get dark around 8:30 here. If this is anything like it is in Michigan lately. But it's already kind of dreary. There's no sun. It's freezing. I'm ready to get out of here. Oh. Well, if you want more videos like this, hit the like button and subscribe. See you around. Well, I tied up my stinky clothes to the side of my backpack. Fun times. Well, if you want more videos like this, hit the like button and subscribe. And thank you for watching. Have a nice day. I do this for you, so you don't have to go do this yourself. And you want to see what it looks like? Now you know.